Welcome to VR Roundtable. This is episode 2. I am one of the hosts, Anthony, and joining me from the UK is Gary. Gary, how's it going over there, man?
Yeah, it's pretty good over here. The weather's changed. I can safely say that it's a little bit rainy, but yeah, pretty good other than that.
You know, it's actually a lot cooler here in Sacramento. We were dealing with 100-degree weather, and now it's finally dropped down. I don't even have to have fans on or nothing, so
Yeah,
it's a
that's
lot
good.
better. All right, so this is episode 2 of VR Roundtable. And one thing we're going to do this week is we're going to start off with kind of like a what you've been playing segment. I know everybody does this on every show, but there's a reason everybody does it because it works out really well. So, Gary, what's something that you've been playing lately? What's going on?
Yeah, well, there's a few things that I've downloaded lately, but one of the things I just wanted to mention first is Richie's Plank experience. I don't know if you've tried that at all. Um,
No, I haven't tried it. No.
no, it's just a short little demo, really. But what it is, because when you see these videos of people that are trying VR for the first time, quite often you'll find that they're doing something where they're high up, and it sort of induces these sort of primal fears, I guess, where you fear of heights and things like that. But with Richie's Plank experience, it was something that I was interested in, and I wanted it mainly for demoing because for anybody who doesn't know, it's basically there's a plank sticking out from the top of a skyscraper, and you can walk out onto the plank in virtual reality. And it can be a little bit of something that people think might scare them more than it actually does. That's the way I find it. But I wanted to mention this in particular because Richie's Plank experience is not just about this walking out on a plank and that's the game. That's not what you're paying your money for, as far as I'm concerned. It's a good little demo and it's good for demonstrating to people. But the thing that got me, I didn't realize when I purchased this, but it's got 3 levels on this skyscraper. You can choose level 1, 2, or 3. The top level is the plank itself, where you're in an elevator and you can walk out onto this plank and you can hear all the wind blowing around you. And I guess, I mean, I don't particularly like heights, but there's something about it because it's a cartoony type of world. It doesn't really bother me as much as I thought it would, and maybe that's just me. I'm not too sure. I know that people actually put down an actual plank in their living room to sort of immerse them even more in this experience. But beyond that, the 2 levels below that are actually different experiences, and I wanted to talk about this because it seems like this game is just this: you walk out on a plank and that's it. But there's one part of this game where you actually can fly around the city. And what it is, in one Vive controller, you have a little rocket. It's a tiny little rocket about the size of your hand, really. And you pull the trigger and that will fire. And you can propel yourself all around this small city. It's not particularly detailed. It's just a small little demo. But it's very, I mean, it's an interesting concept, really. And you're flying around the city, and in the other hand, you've got a hose which you use to put out fires. So you're flying around the city, you see a fire in the distance, you can fly over to it, put out the fire with a hose, and then you move on to the next one. And I didn't see anything about this part of the game before I bought it, so it was a nice little surprise, and it's really interesting to play this because that part on its own could be a full little game, really. I mean, I've seen much smaller experiences released on their own, so I think that part of it could be really interesting if they could expand it, maybe give the city a little bit more detail, make the city bigger, add extra little tasks and things like that. But it was just something I wanted to mention at the beginning of the show because it's something that I wasn't expecting from this experience. And like I say, the game itself, the plank part of it where you do walk out, is interesting to demonstrate to people because I've not demonstrated it yet, but it'd be interesting to see other people's reactions to it, whether they get this kind of fear of being up high, whether it really immerses them in that sensation. Because for me, it just didn't really capture me, that part. But like I say, this other section is really interesting. I'd like to see a little bit more how they develop that in the future.
Yeah, what one thing I've heard is a lot of people call that the Iron Man mode. Like you're kind of
Yeah.
flying around the city like Iron Man. And a lot of people have said, yeah, that's better than the just the normal plank part. The plank part though is interesting to me because do you remember this thing called Save the Cat?
I don't know. No, I'm not
Okay,
too
it
sure
was
about that.
this was like back in April, and there was this GIF that people were showing off all over the place where it was people walking on a plank and there was a cat at the end of the plank, and the people, like, you saw a video of them doing it, and they had like these little ping pong balls all around their head, and like the cat had little ping pong balls, and they were using Vives, but it was like their own tracking. And this was it was like some university in Japan. It was some type of experiment that they were doing, and they had people on it, and it was an actual, 2x4 whatever wood plank, and people had to walk on it, and you could tell that some of the people were absolutely terrified, because you get the wobbly sensation, and it could, if it's your first time in VR, the fear of heights thing is real. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's your first time in VR, you're going to feel that. But I do believe that as you use VR over and over again, you start to get accustomed to it. It doesn't quite hit you quite as much, but um, it seems like it would be a really cool thing to do if you had like a barbecue or something. You had a bunch of people come over, you set up the plank like that. It, to me, it seems like it'd be something where everybody would be talking about it, and it would kind of be like a little viral thing that would kind of kick up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, little goofy experiences like that, like they should do that at the mall, and have a glass container and have somebody doing it, and everybody gets to watch from the outside, and they get to see what it looks like for the person, on some screens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that type of stuff can really help. Little goofy things like that can sometimes get like your average Joe person to be like, "Oh, that was a really cool thing," you know.
Yeah, I think having the actual plank in your room could make a difference potentially. But like you say, it's interesting what you say about the fact that maybe it's the fact that I've been using VR for quite a few months now, and I've got used to the sensations that it can induce, and maybe it's something that it just didn't get me. This fear of heights just didn't really affect me as much because like I say, I'm not. I don't like heights. I don't have a massive fear, but I certainly don't like being high up in certain situations. But for some reason, this one really didn't bother me. It was just fun, to be honest. It was fun being up there, and I could say this little mini game, like you said, the Iron Man simulator. I can understand why people have called it that, really. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because it's something interesting, and I think it's worth trying, especially interesting to demo to other people. But yeah, what is it that you've been playing lately?
So one game that I got recently is Island 359. And the interesting thing about this game is I've talked about it a couple of times on my previous podcast and mentioned it. It was a game I was really excited about. Um, it was a game I was really excited about. But what happened was the day that it came out, I was at work, and I saw the early reviews on it from everybody, and the reviews were kind of mixed. It wasn't one of those things where, oh my God, get this game. It's amazing. It's amazing. It was kind of like, it's okay. It's kind of good. The reviews were not exactly super enthusiastic. So I kind of got this feeling that it's like, maybe I shouldn't get it. And it was 19.99, $20. If it was $10, I would have bought it right away. But $20, I'm like, maybe I'll wait a few days and see what the general consensus is after people have had it for a few days. Because sometimes, how it is where the first couple of days of a game, the hype is almost too out of control where you don't even know if it's good or bad because it almost like there almost needs to be a die down period.
That's right. Yeah, yeah,
And so that was kind of what happened with me with Island 359. So I never had Island 359. And then maybe like, I don't know, a month or whatever went by. And recently I was in this one thread where this guy was talking about, should I buy Island 359? Or I think he was saying, what's the latest on Island 359? Did it get any better? What do people think? And I was in there and I said, you know what? From the way I understand it is there's not a hell of a lot to do. There's, like 3 dinosaurs, and it's very, very early access. So if you're worried at all about spending that kind of money, maybe wait, and so I don't know if one of the developers or somebody saw my post and decided to send me like a private message and gave me a code for the game, right? So I have to say, full disclosure, it was like a beta code or something. So I don't know if it's completely the full game or what, but I have been able to play it. And when I was first playing it, I was like, this game has a lot of problems. But and honestly, last week I was going to talk about this game, but we didn't get to it. And had I talked about it last week, I might have been like 100% negative about it. But I actually played it again recently, and I kind of changed my view on it a little bit. I still have a ton of problems with it, but there are some good qualities to it. And I think eventually it could be an interesting... There are some parts of it that I think are kind of exhilarating, but there's other parts of it that I think are really lacking. So basically, I'll talk about a couple of the problems, like my biggest problems with the game. Number one, the absolutely biggest problem for me is the death animations of the dinosaurs. Okay. Have you played this?
I have, yeah. I bought it actually when it first came out, and I'll go into my thoughts after you've spoken. But I have played it.
Okay, so anyway, the first thing that really jumped out to me is like when I would kill one of these dinosaurs, the animation that happens when the dinosaur dies. It kind of crumples up into a pile, and I know there's 2 guys that basically worked on this game. It was the 2 guys that made the Brookhaven demo, and that demo was incredible. I mean, that Brookhaven demo was better than some games. And so you would think that these 2 developers have serious talent and everything should be really nice, but I think the death animation, maybe they should have tried to get a outside company to do these animations, pay the money, because I don't know, that the death animations really take me out of it. And then the other thing that bothers me is that the dinosaurs, there's 3 different kind of dinosaurs, but they're all identical. Like they're all clones of each other. There's no different color, there's no different size, and so eventually you start seeing the same exact raptor, and there's like 4 of them there, and they all look identical. And then the compies, when they run up to you, they're all identical. And the Allosaurus as well. And I just think that, and they could still, hopefully maybe this is something they can improve, because it's still in early access. But if they could change the colors of them a little bit, maybe even change their scale a little bit, so some are a little bit taller, skinnier, stuff like that, I think that could go a long way. And so initially those 2 things really bothered me about the game. And then also you do have this huge open world that you can go all around, teleporting all over the place, but the open world kind of just repeats and repeats and repeats. So there will be this stump, a tree stump here, and a tree lane over this way, and you walk a couple blocks and you see the same thing, if you're noticing this type of stuff, But those are the negatives. But then if I go to the positive side, I will say that in my most recent play session with the game, I had a knife in one hand and I had a gun in my other hand, okay? And so I'm going through the desert. I mean the desert. I'm going through the like the jungle, basically the forest or whatever, and you know when the compies run up on you, you hear their sound. And if you're using
Yeah.
headphones during the game, I will give them credit for the audio. I think the audio is good. The sound effects have a really distinct sound. You know, when you add ammo and when you open up the boxes and you grab a gun, like all the sound effects are really good. The little sound effects the dinosaurs make are pretty good, and you hear it 3D. And I was playing it, and these compies are coming up at me, but I didn't want to waste all the bullets of my gun. So I started using my knife, you know, and so I started kind of getting low to the ground, you know, like so I could, when they come up, it's easier for me to slash at them.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, man, that after a while, I started becoming like this savage hunter guy that was just taking out these compies left and right, and getting a visceral thrill from it too, which was almost a little bit scary because I'm like, wow, I'm turning into like a freaking psychopath, you know,
Yeah.
taking these compies out. But and then there was one other situation where I was doing something somewhere on the island, and a raptor came up behind me, and I didn't know it was there. I turned around, and it was like, oh shit. It scared the crap out of me, dude. I mean, it was like, I was like, whoa. I mean, it was one of those super scary moments that
I
you
had the
think you're going to have.
same thing, exactly the same thing happened to me at one point in that. Yeah.
And the Allosaurus too. There was one time where I was fighting an Allosaurus and I ran out of my bullets, and it came up on me, and you know, it's 3D taking up space, you know, occupying space, and its head just came right at me, and I was like,
Yeah. 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 The thing about Island 359 is I bought it straight away, and when I first went in there, I was really enjoying myself, and it's got problems. It's early access, but the big thing with me is that since I've played it twice now, I think, and I've just had absolutely no desire to go back into it for some reason. I think the big problem with the game at the moment is content. It's just got almost the content is so sparse in that, and it feels a little bit like it's been rushed out just to get something out there. And it's got a lot of potential, because I think if they could sort out some kind of a campaign or just some little challenges, rather than just because the challenge that's in there at the moment is literally go out and shoot as many dinosaurs as you can and make it back to the base. And that's all well and good, and you can beat your high score, and that might be enough incentive for some people. But like I say, after playing it twice, I really don't feel like going back into that world. And the good thing about it is that if you turn the foliage level, because you've got different settings for the foliage, I think if you turn the foliage level up, it's got a really good graphical. It's very immersive sort of jungle, I guess you'd call it. But it's when you ramp up that foliage, it really helps. It doesn't look quite so sparse or anything like that. So I don't want to say that I hate it or it's no good whatsoever, because I think if they could give it a little bit more time, and it is early access, so you do have to give it a little bit of leeway for that. It feels like it's been pushed out into early access a little bit too early, as weird as that sounds. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with it in the future. But yeah, my take on it is I was impressed when I first went in. The big thing as well is the fact that when these dinosaurs are attacking you, you really don't feel like there's any variation in their attacks. You know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to come up and sort of swipe at you a little bit, and that's it. There's not a lot of AI. There's a big AI problem in this. They just generally lunge towards you.
yeah, I mean, it's two developers, and they know how to make a wave shooter, and they know how to. These guys can program. I mean, it's two guys that made this, and this open world that they created. Like you said, the foliage. There's times when you have these ferns, and you're walking through the ferns, and it looks really real. And the jungle, The jungle does repeat itself, and that's the big downside of it because you'll see it kind of repeating itself over and over again. But there's times when you're walking through this jungle where you're like, this is almost crisis level, you know?
Mm.
I mean, crisis from like 10 years ago, but still, I mean, you're walking through a real crisis. And then the thing that bothered me the most about it is you would think if there's a raptor that's 50 feet that way and he notices me, I should be scared,
Yeah.
shitless, basically. I mean, I should be scared. And you're not that scared because the AI, it's the AI, like you said. And, I mean, maybe your very first encounter with a raptor, you're scared because you don't know how they're going to react. But once you've played this game and you know how the raptors react, you know how the Allosaurus and the Compies act. Yeah, they come at you the exact same way. Did you ever get the crowbar from one of those towers, and then you have the crowbar, and when those Compies come up, you could just be slamming them all over the place?
No, I don't think I tried that actually. No, no. The first time I played it for probably quite a while. I mean, I was quite enjoying it, to be honest, when I first played it, and it was probably maybe 45 minutes, something like that. I was out there in one go in the jungle, and yeah, it was good. But like I say, for some reason, I've just got no desire to go back into it until it gets some kind of an update where they've got a little bit some different game modes or something like that. That's really when I'll jump back in, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because you know how you'll have your Steam menu up and you see all the tiles of all the games, and you're kind of scrolling through the menu and you'll see the logos of the different games. And immediately in your mind, you'll have a quick thought, like just an instant thought, like you see the logo and you're like, nah, that takes too long. Nah, you know what I mean? You'll have these quick little thoughts. And with Island 359, it's like, I'm just going to be wandering around a forest forever. Do I really want to play that? So yeah, you do have that kind of situation, and but um, speaking of updates, let me bring up one other game real quick, and then we'll go back to you. But one other game I want to mention is Space Pirate Trainer. Okay, when you talk about an update, I mean this is an update because for me it improved my performance dramatically because every once in a while I would get like some dropped frames, when all the different drones are flying all around, it would get kind of choppy. It would go into reprojection a lot, and you could tell. And like when I'm shooting my little lasers, the lasers, you could see they would kind of be delayed a little bit and kind of off sync.
Mm.
And after this update, man, it flows smooth as butter. I mean, it is buttery smooth. And then you have all these weapons, you have power-ups. There's all kinds of things you can do. Have you tried the space
Yeah,
pirate?
yeah. I only briefly actually. But since the update, I really wanted to try it because the guy who develops this, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's one person who actually makes this game, and I follow him on Twitter, and he's been posting these little videos on Twitter every now and again about the various updates that are coming. And finally, when this update came, I was really excited for it, and I went back in, and it does make a big difference. Just having the fact that you get all these power-ups and things like that now, it just makes it so much more enjoyable for me. Because when I first got my Vive, I played Space Pirate Trainer quite a lot and I enjoyed it. But after a while, because I'm never going to be the best player at Space Pirate Trainer, so I sort of get to the level that I got to, and I sort of waned a little bit after that. But with this, getting the extra power-ups, it just makes everything much more interesting. I feel like it's got a lot more of a game behind it now, rather than just having the novelty of having your Vive controllers as guns or a shield in your hand. You've got something a little bit more depth within the game, and it is a big update, and it's good. And I hope he carries on giving it similar kinds of updates, really. Yeah, so I'm really on board with it now.
Yeah, I mean the weapons, there's all kinds of there's all kinds of weapons now, like a shotgun. You have like a shotgun weapon that you can do. You have like a grenade launcher, and you can kind of choose when you want the grenade to explode. Um, and then you'll get the power ups. Like you'll be shooting around, and then you'll see a little thing floating up there, and you shoot it, and you get like super machine gun shot. And then when you get the shield is awesome. You get the shield, and it's like the Halo bubble shield, and it's
Yeah.
covering you. And then all the guys are zooming around, and it's really fun to use that when there's like 20 drones flying around. You know, if you can save the shield and shoot it right before they come out, and then you can take out all those guys.
Yeah, I was just going to say actually, if you because one of the videos that you posted, it was something to do with like a kind of whip where you can actually grapple hold of the drones and pull them down and smash them into the ground. I don't know if you've managed to get hold of that power up yet at all, or
Yeah, I haven't tried that yet, but you know what? I was watching Tested. This is just a test. You know, they have a VR minute. It's all
yeah,
about tech, but there's a certain part where they do the VR minute, and I'll watch those VR minutes. And one of the guys was saying that that little lasso, that he was like smiling from ear to ear and just giggling and laughing because I guess you could smack them into each other, and you could do all kinds of. I didn't try the lasso. I was trying some of the other weapons. There's one cool one where you get this one power up and you're shooting at the drones, but you activate like some super missile system, and it's like shoo, 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 all these missiles go flying. Did you see that one?
I did. Yeah, I saw a video just today actually about that. I think it's like homing missiles, isn't it, where they go in onto the drones without too much effort. But
You know how you have a ship behind you, like your
yeah,
ship? Maybe they're shot from, because it's not like they're shot from you. It's like they're coming from way above you, and it's like they're tracking wherever you're shooting, and they shoo, shoo, shoo.
yeah,
And that was really cool. Yeah. So, you know, Space Pirate Trainer. One quick little thing I want to say about it is when I was super new to VR and VR was like brand new, when I first played Space Pirate Trainer, the first time I got shot and the laser shot went boom right into my chest, I swear to you, man, like my brain was like, "Ugh," you know,
I
I
know
thought
it's
I was
horrendous.
dead, dude. And it was like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not dead. I don't feel any pain. And then I just start giggling to myself. And so, unfortunately, when you've been in VR a long time and you get used to VR, those kind of experiences are more for like the newbies. I wish I could be, you know, brand new again because God, I'll tell you what, I played Space Pirate Trainer a little bit in the very beginning, and I told some people, I was like, this is better than like a ride at Universal Studios. I mean, like 5 years ago. Like if they
Yeah,
had Space Pirate Trainer at Disneyland or Universal Studios or something, there would be a line out the door, you know, because you get in there, you play it. I mean, you're like, I'm immersed in this world. These drones are flying. I got these shots coming, and you dodge the shot, and the shot is going, zzz, you know,
yeah, it would have been
it's,
incredible. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen, because for me with the Vive as well, I don't know if you've seen those things where you go in these huge. They're usually at like theme parks, but you've got like a huge dome that you go in, and the screen is projected upwards on this dome. So you have like usually things to do with space or something like that. And for me, that was like incredible. When you go into something like that 10 years ago, that's incredible. Now the Vive, we've got something in our homes which makes that almost irrelevant. You've got these huge giant dome theaters, and they're almost irrelevant now. You've got virtual reality, and I think about that quite often.
yeah, absolutely, man. It's the future is happening pretty damn quickly. You got to admit, dude, this is almost like, could you imagine the people that saw television, like the first couple, like when television first hit? I mean, they would look at it and they would be like, what sorcery is this? I mean, this is ridiculous. Even though it was like a little tiny square and it was black and white, and you could hardly see anything. Still, it was like, this shouldn't be happening, you know? And
Yeah,
so we're kind of going through that type of thing. I think with VR and then AR later, once that happens, it really will. I mean, it's going to be a huge deal.
it will. Yeah, it absolutely will. Um, yeah, I was a few other things that I just want to mention about that I've been playing this week as well. Dirt Rally was on offer on Steam this week, and it's an Oculus exclusive. I don't know if I want to say exclusive, but it's an Oculus. It's for the Rift. It's on the Oculus Home. but you can play it through Revive on the HTC Vive. So I thought, the problem is I've got a couple of racing games for my Vive. I've got Project Cars and Assetto Corsa, and a lot of the time when you've got a racing game, I'll sort of settle into it, and I won't really bother buying it any new ones. I'm not particularly bothered as long as I've got one decent one for my Vive. Then I'm happy with that. I'm not huge into racing or anything like that, racing games. So as long as I've got one just to give me that experience, I'm fine. But Project Cars and Assetto Corsa have both independent problems with them. Project Cars, fantastic game, but its performance is really poor on the HTC Vive, and you have to turn the settings down really low, and even then it's very pixelated. It doesn't look particularly good. Assetto Corsa, on the other hand, you've got fantastic graphics, performance is superb, it runs so well. But you've got this annoying little thing with Assetto Corsa where none of the menus are in VR. So every time you want to start a new race or something like that, you have to go back to your desktop, take your headset off and manage it all through the desktop. Then you have to go back to your seat, set it up and make sure you've got it repositioned so that you're square in the cockpit and everything, and then you can start racing again. So it's just a couple of little annoyances. And I had my eye on Dirt Rally for quite a while because it's got some really good reviews, and especially in virtual reality. So I thought I'd give that a go. It's half price at the moment, and yeah, that's something that I've been playing. It's sort of in terms of performance, it's sort of somewhere between Project Cars and Assetto Corsa. It doesn't run quite as well as Assetto Corsa, but you can turn down just a couple of settings and get 90 frames per second with a reasonable graphics card. And even if you've got sort of the bare minimum, I think you can still get it running pretty well. So yeah, I've been playing a little bit of Dirt Rally and I'm enjoying it. It's probably one of the ones I'd like to continue with. The only thing is, I wish Assetto Corsa was a little bit more optimized in terms of its menu system, because I think overall the experience of driving in Assetto Corsa is just a little bit better than Dirt Rally, in my opinion. I think it comes down to a personal preference, because obviously a rally type race is completely different to a race on an actual course. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if you've actually tried any driving games. I know you didn't have any racing games so far, so I don't know if you've actually jumped into any of those yet.
I have not tried a single racing game in VR, and I should download that Live for Speed or something like that. It's like a free thing. I mean, I might as well try that out, right? But I always forget about it. I know Drive Club VR is coming for PSVR, and it's like got a ton of courses and stuff, and I'm sure they've actually spent a good amount of time making sure that it works in VR as far as menus and all that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I might look at that when that comes along. But yeah, I wish there was more demos, because my biggest fear is I don't think a lot of these things are going to run on my, like Project Cars and stuff. Like I wouldn't even try it, because my PC is already struggling as it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're worried about that, Assetto Corsa is definitely the best one, because the performance on that is absolutely superb. You can super sample that game on I've got a 1070 graphics card. You can super sample that up to ridiculous levels. I mean, up to sort of 1.7, something like that, and still maintain 90 frames per second. But there's it is a big problem. And I tell you, it's good, because if you're definitely getting a PlayStation VR, you actually get a demo disc with Drive Club VR on there. So it's going to be a good way of testing it out, because some people, my wife included, actually gets really motion sick from these racing games. So to have some kind of a demo just to make sure that you're going to be okay with it, it's a good idea. And Drive Club looks pretty good, to be honest.
Hey, one quick question about Dirt Rally. When I think of Dirt Rally, I think of like boom, 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 over rough terrain. But in VR, because your body isn't feeling that, what's that like?
It's a little bit odd, because, I mean, in all honesty, I've only played it about half an hour so far, but I have been, because I only bought it a couple of days ago and I've not had too much time to really delve into it. But I wanted to try it out just to see exactly what it was like. But it's a good point, because on some of the tracks that I've played, where your car, if you go up the side and the actual cockpit view within the headset changes, it's sort of rolling around like this, and it just seemed a little bit odd, because you're not getting that sensation. And probably this game definitely more than Project Cars or Assetto Corsa, you do get that little slightly odd feeling. But I think it's probably going to be something you get used to as you play this one, because one of the big things when I first played Project Cars and Assetto Corsa, there was a thing where you feel a little bit strange because you're not feeling the inertia and the momentum of the car as you're turning around the corner. But the more you play these games, exactly the same as almost any other experience in VR, that sensation diminishes quite quickly, actually. So I wouldn't say it's a big problem in Dirt Rally, but it's something that I did notice almost straight away while playing it.
Yeah, it's probably something your brain eventually just kind of adapts to what's going on and is like, okay, I kind of understand what's going on here, and
Yeah.
I'm, it's not that big of a deal. Um, okay, so one game I really did want to talk about, and I think you've tried this as well, is the new demo for Vertigo.
Oh, yes.
And Vertigo is a game that, wow, man, you know how much love Budget Cuts gets? Like everybody's like, Budget Cuts, Budget Cuts. I can't wait till Budget Cuts comes out. And, there's this universal love out there for Budget Cuts. And I kind of think like Vertigo is this game that was floating around out there with that original demo. And I always thought that that original demo was like better than a lot of games. I mean, it had 3 different parts to it. You could go to this one thing where you're constantly battling like endless enemies, and then you would go through that one adventure part where you're going through the hallways, and then there was like a little crappy shooting gallery. But that demo was better than a number of full games easily. And Vertigo didn't get a lot of pub, I don't think, too much. Like not as much as it probably should get. But a new demo came out for it, and Vertigo actually was supposed to be out, but it just got delayed. The guy was saying September 30th. Now it's been delayed until later in October. But this new demo, oh my goodness, man, this game really, this is looking like a poor man's Budget Cuts, and we're going to get it this year.
Yeah, I downloaded the first demo when I first got the Vive, and I didn't give it anywhere near enough time because I went straight into that shooting gallery, as you said, and I thought, is this it? Is this the game? And I didn't go into any of the other sections of it. So I had so many other things to try that I didn't give it anywhere near the amount of attention that it deserved. But I played this after everybody talking about this new Vertigo demo. I played this one, and I mean, it's one of the best demos that I've played so far in the Vive. And like you say, it reminds me, it's got so many similarities with Budget Cuts in just the feel of it. I think it's not really got the same play style or anything like that, but it's just the feel of really being immersed in this world and having to traverse all these corridors in different ways. And I don't know about you, but the bit that really impressed me was, I don't know, where you go across the sort of the chasm with the monkey bars.
Yeah.
And that bit was really good, because I've not seen anything like that in any other games really, where it works so well where you think it probably wouldn't, because it's so strange when you first get on that part and you're using the monkey bars and you're pulling yourself across, and yet you're still standing in one position. But yeah, it's very good demo.
Yeah, man. The thing about it to me, okay, the reason why I think it's so much like Budget Cuts is because the environments are just so they're not like Unreal Engine 12, I mean, there's nothing super fancy about it, but it just has this realness to it. It's like when you're next to a wall, you feel like you're next to a wall. It doesn't wobble, it doesn't move around, there's no glittering. It's super simplistic. Like you look up and you can see the fluorescent lighting up there, and it's the graphics, like the textures are not exactly dropping anybody dead, but it's just so it just seems like it's so real. I mean, it puts you in there. The presence is really strong. the little trackpad thing that they're doing now, I mean, the teleporting, you like teleport somewhere and then you take the controller and it's like you're pulling a loop over your head and then boom, you're in that new place.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you can also do the side grip buttons and just like point it in a certain direction, hit the grip buttons, and then you just, just trackpad style.
yeah.
So I was kind of mix and matching both of those. And then when you climb up like the ladders and you're hanging up there, up high, and then you get to that one guy and he's like huge and you're shooting him and he's got like a lightsaber thing.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
game, man, I really think and the music. Oh, dude, the music. Did you hear the music? I mean, I just want to hear the music in my car.
Yeah, it was everything about it, really. I think everything about this game is the demo, at least, is sort of heading in the right direction. And with this one, from what I heard a while back, I'm pretty sure it was this game that it's being developed by these two young guys who have no experience with making games at all in previously. So this is like their first attempt at doing something like this, and this is really impressive. I hope I'm correct in saying that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I heard, and it's a very impressive game to have it as your first one, really.
It's only going to be $15, I think, which is
Yeah.
like, wow, that's hardly anything. And there's a lot of levels and stuff. If you've seen some of the trailers, it shows all kinds of stuff. So you never, on that first demo, you never played the adventure part
No,
ever?
no, I
Oh
completely
my
missed out on that.
God.
Yeah, I
Okay,
know.
check this out. I think there is some way to download that from somewhere and still be able to get access to that because dude, that was one of the best demos there was. The
I heard,
shooting gallery, absolutely awful. You go
yeah.
into that shooting gallery, it's like this game sucks. But if you go into oh man, I love the Vertigo, the first one, because again, you're going through these hallways and the floor and the walls, it just feels like a real environment. And oh, there was this one part too where sometimes fake sunlight in VR is like really cool. Like you'll go through a certain area and the sun is coming in, and the way they have the shadows and the lighting and everything, it feels like sunlight. You almost, your brain almost feels warmth, when you
Yeah,
walk through there, because I think your brain gets tricked. And there's this one little part where sunlight is coming in, and then you have to walk up these stairs, and you have a gun in one hand, and you'll see your shadow going up the stairs with the gun, and the sunlight with the shadow, it's just super cool. And so $15, I really think that Vertigo, this could be like, I'm sure in January or something we'll have to do a show, Vive Game of the Year. This is in the running, straight up.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. If it's got as much, because just for such a short demo as well, it's got so much content in there. Really, so many different little tricks that keep you interested. No two rooms are the same, really, and there's a lot to do. And I hope the full game has just as much content spread out over or however long the game is going to be. But yeah, I was going to mention, actually, you just talked about the sunlight thing, and it made me think of something else that I know that you want to go on to, is Vanishing Realms, because again, that's had another update. I don't know if you're ready to move on yet, but
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, because the thing about Vanishing Realms, this is probably the experience that most impressed me when I first played it on the Vive, and this was one of the first things that I played. I tried all the usual ones, Space Pirate Trainer, the Blue, and all those. Then I jumped into Vanishing Realms, and for me, this was on a completely different level. It's that first section, that first room where you're in that huge room with all the pillars, and then you've got the bit in the middle where you have to get to and pick up the crystal. The light shining down there, just as you were saying that in the Vertigo demo, the light shining down there is really, really. It just looks so good, and when you go through that, it's. I don't want to keep using the word immersive, but it is. That room for me is probably the most immersed I've been in VR, because it was just the graphics are not particularly realistic. They're more going for like a cartoony style, but it just felt so real. And lately, just recently, it's had a big update. I've not actually gone into the new section just yet. I am starting to play through it again, I don't know how far you've got going through, because I think it's got a big outside section which has been added. So I don't know how far you've got through that.
Yeah, I heard about the update. See, when I got Vanishing Realms, like you, I was blown away because it's like you're walking through these dungeons, and yeah, the graphics are cartoony, but the music and just the environment, you're holding the torch. You know, there's something magical about holding a torch and it's illuminating the wall, you know, and the wall might have the
Absolutely.
most basic texture ever, but it puts you there, man. It just really puts you there. And Vanishing Realms, absolutely one of my favorites, but I pretty much went through the whole thing. And there was those challenge levels at the end where you're kind of like battling waves of guys. And I didn't screw around with that too much because that really wasn't why I liked Vanishing Realms. But then when this update came out, I was like, well, let me go through it again. You know, let me try one more time through Vanishing Realms. And I was only in the beginning part of it on my way through it again. And I didn't notice a ton of differences, but what I did notice is there's like some extra little chalices of gold and stuff that are hidden in other little spots. So, and what you have to do is you'll see, like, you'll be looking up at some pillar up there, right? And you'll see like a golden chalice that is just sitting on the edge there. And you're like, I must be able to get to that thing somehow. And then you look around and you see a rock on the ground that I never saw in the previous version of Vanishing Realms. And you go over there with your controller and you can click it, and then boom, you got the rock in your hand, and now you're throwing it up there, and then boom, you knock the chalice off and you get the chalice. So there were a few little differences that I noticed. I went over to, you know, the area when you first get outside
Yeah, yeah,
in Vanishing Realms. I mean, how cool is that when you first step outside and the birds are flying by and the ocean is there,
yeah,
and you're
fantastic.
walking over to get your sword. When I played this new version, I think the swords looked better. Like, I think they redid the textures on the swords and stuff. There was just some little details here and there, but I'm having fun going through it again because it's one of these games. Yeah, it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 3 hours if you're like me and you try to walk around as much as possible and not teleport like bam, 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 bam. But oh, let me ask you, because I mean, you're a fan of this game. You know, when you got to the outside area, not the first time where you get the sword, but the second time, did you get a Halo vibe at all? Because for
um,
some reason, I got a Halo, like Halo 1.
yeah, um, I, I didn't get it. No, I can't say that I did. But now you mention it, it's certainly got something about it there. Yeah,
It's like on Halo, in the very first Halo, when you're outside and it's kind of nighttime and the moon and like there's trees and stuff. I don't know why, but in the second part of Vanishing Realms, not when you first get outside, but the second time you get outside and the bow and you know, you see the bow, it's when you get the bow and arrow. And you're
yeah.
kind of walking around and the mountains are kind of, I mean, there's like little hills going up, and it's just like the moonlight and the color of everything. I don't know, it gave me a Halo vibe. And I was walking around, I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna make Halo for this.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. But like you, I didn't actually get into the challenge part at the end. You know, where you're fighting all those guys at the end. I just sort of I went through the first few, and then I just thought this isn't for me. And exactly the same reason as you, it was because that's not why I played that game. I play it to just be immersed in this world. And you know, going through that game, there's certain sections that just stick out to me, just almost insignificant sections, really. But there's a part where you go through and there's a bridge, a wooden bridge above you, and then you have to backtrack on yourself, go up, and then you're actually on top of that wooden bridge and you're looking down. And just for me, using room scale without using the teleport, just being on top of that bridge and walking around my room, it was just such it's really engrossing part of the game, and it's something that game does so well.
Dude,
But
imagine this. Okay, let's say you had Vanishing Realms, right? But let's say it was constructed to be like a Disneyland experience, okay? And so they have a 40 by 40 room. And so when the guy, like whoever is doing Vanishing Realms, I mean, a different game or whatever, but the same type of thing, right? A 40 by 40 room. And if the game was designed where, okay, you're going to be going from one 40 by 40 area to another, whether it's outdoors, indoors, or whatever. And if you had a wireless headset, you know, and everything was wireless and some special tracking system that is tracking you in a huge giant space, I mean, that is a dream of dreams, dude, because Vanishing Realms, there were times I was walking around. I have a pretty big area. And what I would do is you know how you have your four corners, right? And so when you're walking somewhere, you'll see the chaperone grid pop up.
Yeah.
And then so what I would do is I would walk back, and then the chaperone grid fades away. And then I would be at the very back of my space. Then that would give me like 7 feet where I can just walk like a normal human. And oh my goodness, you're just walking through there. You got a shield in one hand, a sword in the other, or you got your torch.
That's exactly the part, because walking through even that first section where you're walking through the corridors just after you've started the game, really. And I actually made it so that exactly the same as you, I was taking steps back just so I had an area that I could just walk forward in. And it's just incredible, really, when you've got, like you say, you've got this torch in one hand and you're shining it round at the wall as you're taking real steps in the real world, and yet you're in this completely different place. And like I say, this was one of the big things for me when I first got VR, and I've wanted to play through it again anyway for quite some time. So getting this update is giving me an opportunity to do that. And like I say, the big update, from what I hear, is the outside section that you were talking about reminded you of sort of Halo. That whole section, as far as I know, has been expanded quite a lot. So there's a lot more to do in that area. And I can't wait to get back into it, really.
Yeah, it's such a cool game, and the music and just the atmosphere. The funny thing about it though, and this says a lot for the future of VR, is that 3 years from now, we're going to look back on Vanishing Realms and it's going to be like, we're going to think, oh my God, that was crap. You know, but right now it's doing what we want, which is kind of like there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. You're actually doing something. You're going somewhere. There's some type of quest. You're trying to do something. Because a lot of the Vive games they don't have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and like a story. And this doesn't, I mean, the story is paper thin. There's not a lot of voice work and stuff. But imagine when some real money is going to get behind a game exactly like this, and there's going to be more characters that you have to talk to, and they're real life size, and the graphics get even better. It's wow, man. I mean, it's going to be incredible.
Nintendo need to make Zelda VR, but they're not going to do that. So
yeah, that eventually I think they will, but yeah, I can't wait for something like that because they're going to polish the hell out of it, and that's what we need. All right, so we did a bunch of what you've been playing lately type of stuff. So let's just go into maybe one or two quick topics of general VR type topics, and then we'll get out of here. So one of the topics I wanted to mention was VR prices. Okay, so recently I did a post on Reddit in the PSVR section where I said, I don't think any game should cost $60 this year. And everybody came into the thread and just killed me, man. I mean, I just got attacked by like 50 people in there. It was funny. I sent you a link to it. You checked it out. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it was a funny thread. I was reading through it, and a lot of people get angry about anybody who seems to voice any kind of opinion on anything. So it can't come as too much of a surprise, really. But the I mean, basically what you're saying is coming from the Vive and looking towards what PlayStation VR has, as far as we know, it's difficult to justify a $60 game, a full price game, when the content of it is so low, and there's so many different factors that go into them choosing that price that it's really, really difficult to like make any kind of harsh judgment on them. They're judging the market based on the player base, how many people there are, how they're going to make their money back, and how many units they need to sell in order to do this, at what price. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, it's a difficult topic to talk about, because deep down, when you're playing some of these experiences that are quite expensive, you are thinking, oh, no matter how incredible this is, it's short, and the actual level of content within them is so sparse that it's difficult to justify the costs that I'm paying for it. And like I say, it's not that you're blaming the developers necessarily for trying to get their money back. They need to make a bit of money too, but at the same time, you've got to consider the fact that consumers are only going to pay so much, and it's only going to last so long. I know that in the US you had this gaming crash in the 80s, and it could be a realistic threat if there's too many short experiences being charged too much for.
Yeah, my original argument, what I was trying to say is that I was really talking about this year, 2016. It's like, if you go, because what happened was I was looking around, and I saw the price of Battlezone, Battlezone, $59.99, $60. And Battlezone was a game that I tried on PSVR, and it's a cool game. It's not a bad game at all, but I don't know, man. When I think of a $60 game, I think of Uncharted 4. I think of Gears of War 4. I think of something like, boom, like a real $60 game where the company spent $50 million making it. Like, I mean, I know there's a lot more $60 games that aren't Uncharted 4 and Gears of War 4. I know there's tons of $60 games that come out that aren't $50 million investments. But my biggest worry is you have your average Joe Blow. He goes to Walmart and he buys a PSVR. And when Joe Blow buys a $60 game, he gets Call of Duty. He gets Battlefield. He gets a prime time, like Grand Theft Auto or something. He's getting a $60 game that has incredible production values. It lasts for a long time, and it's a well-oiled machine because they know how to make those games. They've been making them for years. VR is a brand new thing. And it's weird because people have this theory that on PlayStation VR, just because you have these developers that have been around longer, like they're just going to come out of the blue and just make an incredible VR game on their very first try. Maybe they will, but if somebody spends all the money they have to spend to get PSVR, and then they buy a $60 game and it turns out to be a dud, that's going to leave a real sour taste in their mouth. And so my suggestion was, let's keep everything just a little bit lower, artificially lower, just for this early holiday, just so that nobody has. If you go buy a game and it's $50, you have a different mentality in your head. You're thinking about the game a little bit differently because that if it's a prime time game, it's 60. So if it's not 60, it's got to be a little bit lower than that. And so your expectations are a little bit lower. And Sony is doing this with a lot of their PSVR games. I think Riggs is $50, not 60. There's other games that are $50. I think Robinson the Journey might be 50 instead of 60. And I just think, I know it's only $10, and a lot of people are like, you really think $10 is that big of a... I do, because it's your perception going into the game. And I really hope that all these people are right and I'm wrong, and that all these people, like Riggs is going to blow everybody out of the water, and Battlezone is going to blow everybody out of the water, and all, whatever these $60 games like Star Trek, and I forget which ones are Star Trek Bridge Crew, Battlezone. There's a handful of them that are full price, and my argument is these games better be 10s or 9s if you're charging that much, because, and people are like, well, but why do they have to be so great? And I'm just saying, VR is brand new. It's a baby. VR is a little fragile baby, and we need to take care of this little baby. We don't want to throw this baby up in the air and swing a
Yeah.
baseball bat at it. And if those games are incredible, sure, everything's wonderful, right? But if one of those games is a major stinker, it's gonna, because people, when people experience something and it really turns them off, they tell everybody. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it is. I think it's like, say, a perception thing, because you've got this thing where, I don't know if you know the game No Man's Sky. I'm sure you do, but that got a lot of heat lately, because a lot of people were saying it's not really worth the $60 that they're charging for it, and you can understand that to a certain extent. But the amount of attention that got is it sort of doesn't bode well for VR, because these games, the first lot of games that are going to be coming out for PlayStation VR, are going to get a lot of attention, a lot more attention than the games on Oculus and Vive got, I think, anyway. So if there's games in there that they are charging this amount of price for, they're going to be under a lot of scrutiny from the big media outlets, the big gaming media outlets, in terms of saying, is VR worth it? Is it worth this money? So, like you say, with sending VR out, it is exactly as you were saying. It's still so weak at the moment that you need to take care of it, and you need to maybe lose a little bit of money on it. And Sony are in the best position to do that, as far, well, in terms of the whole ecosystem that they've got. They've got first party developers that can develop VR and maybe lose a little bit of money on certain titles. And to me, some of the games that are being listed as full price games or almost full price games, it doesn't look like they've got the level of content that we have come to expect from those price of games. So I think at the end of the day, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But if they can maybe take some hit on the cost, and not make quite so much money out of them as they possibly need to continue, then it'll help it out in the long run. And I'm sure there's people that are a lot more intelligent than me that have looked into this and have tried to get the price right, but that's the way it appears.
yeah, and I have to admit that I've been spoiled by Steam sales, and you kind of get a warped perception on prices after you've been buying games for like $7 and $8. I'm not talking about the VR. I'm saying back when I had my PC before, I was getting primetime games, big AAA games for like $7, $8. Now they might be like a year old, but I didn't play them a year ago and they were still pretty new to me. So, you get a bit of a warped mentality. And then it's like one guy in the thread was like, as soon as you said you were a Vive owner, I
I saw that.
immediately knew. Yeah. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true. It's true, because Vive, we have a lot of watered down experiences. We don't have these deep, super involved. We don't have the lush production values and all that. But I was saying, look, these little experiences that we do have, these little bite-sized games, they're extremely focused. Like Space Pirate Trainer is focused. It's doing what it's trying to do, and it's doing a damn good job. And it's $15, so it's doing what it's doing. So I think we got a really good situation actually going on with the Vive right now. We don't have the bombastic Robinson the Journey and stuff like that. And that's going to be the real eye-opener. So when we get Robinson the Journey on PSVR, is it really going to blow? Like, is their jungle going to just blow Island 359's jungle totally out of the water? And is just the AI of their dinosaur, like, is it going to be just like night and day? I don't know. Maybe it will be. And if it is, that's going to be super interesting. So, and hopefully we'll be covering it on this show. Yeah. And it's going to be an interesting fall for sure.
Yeah, well, exactly. If these games can justify their price tag, then it can only be a good thing, and I hope they really do. I mean, it's going to be a benefit for VR if everybody's in the opinion that these games are worth the amount they're charging for them. So yeah.
All right. So one last topic before we get out of here. So 360 video. We all know about 360 video, and it's interesting because somebody that doesn't know anything about virtual reality, somebody that hasn't tried virtual reality, you have this perception in your mind that 360 video is going to be incredible. You know, you're going to look all around, it's going to look so amazing. And then when you actually get VR and you actually try 360 video, it's like, oh, it's like, oh, everything is completely pixelated and everything is blurry. And it's kind of cool. It's cool that I can turn around and see a video over there and a video over there and blah, blah, blah. But you're taking this, you got to imagine you got a 360-degree sphere that's all around you, and you're filling all of that with video. And so if you have a 1080p video, you're filling this gigantic canvas with 1080p video. So it's pixelated to the 12th degree. But there is some news that came out. There's a company in Seattle, Pixvana or something like, wait, what is it again?
Yeah, Pixvana. Yeah, I think I don't know exactly.
It's like Nirvana and Pixel, I guess. Pixvana. Okay, so this company is saying that they've come up with this proprietary technology where they basically have a 10K video that they're spreading around a 360-degree sphere. And the way that they're able to do this is they're streaming the video to you, but they're only streaming what you're actually looking at. So they're able to save a ton of bandwidth because they're only delivering what you're actually looking at. And the interesting thing about this is if you read the article, it sounds like there's going to be an app on Steam for this on October 18th, kind of like a preview. And also, if you look at the whole deal, it's like they take a video signal and they break it up into 30 tiles. And it's like a syncing technology. So if you look in this corner, it goes to that tile, and that tile has a really high resolution. You look down here, it goes. I don't know how the switching is going to work. I mean, is it going to be seamless? Is it going to look really janky? But if this is real and it can really make 360 video look clean and clear, it's going to be huge.
Yeah. It's a big problem when you first try 360 video because it doesn't look anything how you expect it to look. With this, it sort of reminds me a little bit of the foveated rendering that some certain headsets are sort of working on at the moment, where it focuses the point that you're actually looking at within the VR headset. It will render that part with much higher clarity than the rest of the area, because you're not taking in that information. So the end result of that is the fact that it will be that you'll see much clearer within the headset. And this sort of reminds me of that kind of technology, but in a slightly different way, where it's more the position, the overall position of your headset that it's rendering to the high quality level. And the problem with this, you hear this streaming thing. How quickly can they do that over broadband with streaming? Can it be that it's instantaneous the way it needs to be? So it'll be interesting to see how it works. If we can demonstrate it within a few weeks, then I'll definitely be interested in seeing how it works.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff, we go to the different news sites like Road to VR and Upload VR, and they have all kinds of stories. And there's all kinds of little companies that have like a robotic hand that you use in VR and, this and that, a full body suit. And you hear about 1 million of these things, and only 1 out of 100 ever does anything. So this Pixvana, Nirvana with pixels and all that, they're up in Seattle. If these guys really do deliver something legitimate, that would be cool. But I don't know. It's you get these stories and you don't really know what to believe. But hey, October 18th isn't too far away, so hopefully it's something we can try out. But if it actually really does work, that would be huge, because 360 video right now is, it's like old YouTube from like 10 years ago when everything was pixelated to hell and you couldn't really see anything.
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking about as well, because with a lot of 360 video, it's not stereoscopic, so it's just like a flat photo that surrounds you, which is all well and good. But I have tried a few 360 videos that have been stereoscopic, and you've got only a little bit of 3D. There's not been a great deal in there, but it does make a difference. So I hope they could probably incorporate something like that into the video. I guess it's to do with the capture as well.
I have seen 360 video that looks halfway decent. With Revive on Oculus, there's a video called like Introduction to Virtual Reality. Did you see that one where there's a guy, he's like throwing up these fire sticks, and then there's an elephant part? And
I did, yeah.
Okay, the part where the guy is juggling the fire sticks, like the jungle dude, and it's like a black background. When you're just looking at that guy, it looks clear. I mean, it looks clear and clean. I don't know if it's just because they have a black background and it's just one, but you turn your head and there's something going on over here. You turn your head and there's these people dancing over there. But that was one thing that I saw that was crystal clear. But on that same video, you had this scene where there's like elephants, and you're like in the middle of the jungle, and there's elephants walking over here, and a rhinoceros or something, and it was really pixely. So it's kind of like
they're exactly the same in part of that video as well, where you're on a boat and you're going through like a lake area, and that was really pixelated as well. So maybe it's just something that they did on that particular section. They were able to do something a little bit special maybe. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what this is like, and hopefully it can help 360 video, because it's not something that I've really looked into a great deal, because it is just the experiences that I've had are not been particularly compelling.
Yeah, it's funny because you'll hear people talk about, oh, I bet porn is incredible, and it's like, no, when you see it, it's not as incredible as you thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be, but not really.
No.
But there was this LiDAR thing. Did you ever hear about this like LiDAR camera? This was like maybe a couple of months back, but it's like this unbelievably expensive camera that's like this huge ball that is made out of like, and it's capturing individual light fields.
Oh, okay.
And so they can put it somewhere, they could put it inside the room, and it basically can capture every little bit of light that is flowing everywhere in the room. It's like really incredible, but it's like unbelievably expensive. They've only shot one thing with it, and we haven't been able to see it in VR or anything like that. But because it's light fields, you could actually imagine a video where you're walking around in the video, like let's say there's a video where it's a street with a car driving by, and you can actually like almost walk down the street and the car drives by. I mean, not too much. You can't walk far, but
so is it something to do? It's sort of being able to calculate the distances or something to render like a 3D scene or something similar to that, I guess. Or
it's light field. It's like these light field camera. Basically, everything that we see is the reflection of light. You know what I mean? Like when you're looking at a tree, you're not seeing the tree. You're seeing the reflection of the light on the tree. And what these cameras do is they just capture all the light in that little area. But because this sphere camera thing has like, cameras all around it everywhere, it has these smaller cameras that are capturing a small section of the light field. And then so they're able to stitch it all together to make it one volumetric room, basically, where everything is captured and you can kind of walk around it like photogrammetry, but it's video. But you could only walk in a very small little tiny spot.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to look into that. I've not seen anything about that yet. No. So yeah, that sounds really interesting. That does. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we'll see what happens with all this stuff. But
yeah,
we've been going for a little while here. So do you want to go ahead and call this episode 2 officially?
Yeah, we can leave it there. I guess we'll just say thanks to everyone for watching and listening. We're still working on trying to get an audio podcast up anyway. So hopefully we'll get that sorted at some point. And yeah, we'll keep on with regular episodes hopefully. So I guess we'll see you next time.
All righty, take it easy. We'll see you guys.
Cheers. Bye.